haven't been able to put back in the chat. There's no method for school districts to test anyone. We're required to work with the Department of Health to test, nor can we impose a requirement upon students to return, saying you have to be tested. Nor can we impose a requirement on our staff to be tested. That's based on what I've been told by the Washington County Department of Health, and that's very similar to what all the school districts in our area have heard from their departments of health. So as far as some of the questions I've received about testing, as well as when will we know about the results of the COVID testing? Even if I could test, all that information is protected health information, and I wouldn't be able to share it. And actually, the testing agency cannot share it with me. It's protected information. If there's a positive case and it's referred to the Department of Health, the Department of Health isn't allowed to tell me who the positive case is. So all that is, and that can be frustrating, I understand, but all that information is highly protected information, and it isn't something that's available to me. So there's no testing that's going to occur here at school or directly by the school. If there's a need for testing, it will be handled by the Department of Health for Washington County, and we will follow whatever directions or directives they give us, and we'll be relying on them for guidance as well if there's a need for somebody to be tested. But they will not coordinate through us because it's protected health information. I'm just looking so I can see the chat as well. Yeah, so let me, while people are putting some more questions in the chat, let me go through a few things. So a lot of times folks are concerned about our preparedness and questions like that, especially when you hear about the financial situation of the district. So currently we have every piece of personal protective equipment that we need here on site to open school based on the Department of Health guidance, and that'd be the statewide guidance. So we have things such as face shield. These are the ones that we have that go around the face like this. These are for the staff. We also have masks as well. We have gloves available to all staff members. We are asking that staff and parents provide their own masks each day, and that the supplies that the school has are used as backups in case somebody forgets. We're not gonna have an issue if a student forgets. In case a mask becomes soiled or a mask breaks or something like that happens, we have a large stock of those materials. Same thing with our gloves, and the shields would be for staff members who have to work in close proximity with young people or have to work, have certain specific health conditions where they would want to have a shield. But each staff member will have access to a shield. Shields must be worn with masks, not instead of masks. That's state guidance, unless the individual has a note from a doctor that says they cannot tolerate a mask for a duration of time. And we need a pretty specific note on the duration about that. Other things that we have, as you know, the hand sanitizer was in pretty short supply. We're starting with, right now with over 32 gallons of the New York Clean hand sanitizer. We are breaking it out of the gallon bottles and making sure that every single classroom will have hand sanitizer in a more easy to use bottle than this. We're actually looking at like spray bottles to be used. This is an example. The actual one will probably be a little bit smaller than this, but we do have them properly labeled. It is hand sanitizer, and we also have some of the really small New York State Clean hand sanitizers. Additionally, each classroom is going to have a bottle of approved disinfectant spray and paper towels. So there is stuff available to every classroom all the time. We also have increased our disinfecting and cleaning protocols. So places that are used, such as bathrooms, our bathrooms were traditionally only cleaned at the end of the day or in the evening for the next day. So they're now on a three time per day, at least 3 times per day schedule, and frequently touch things like doorknobs, light switches, the crash bars on the exits to the school will be cleaned multiple times throughout the day. and disinfected multiple times throughout the day. Additionally, we have had to invest in some industrial equipment. We purchased some foggers for our school, and folks who are listening about what schools are having to do or businesses are having to do. So we do have some industrial foggers that are used after the cleaning happens. They'll be used in each classroom to do the disinfecting. And basically they take and they make a liquid into an aerosol, and you spray it throughout the room, and that is how you disinfect the classrooms on a daily basis. So we've got some new equipment. We certainly had plenty of PPE and the hand sanitizer and the appropriate chemicals to get school started. We have any?
So wondering about the deadline being pushed back for deciding for remote learning, and also on the flip side of that, wondering if they could make a determination anytime. So
Maggie said, like, what if cases start to rise second week of September or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I had a parent ask me that question in an email the other day about remote learning. We probably could give a little bit more time on the survey. Yeah, you got that. On the survey for remote learning. And I had a parent ask me, and it just came up again in the chat, so thank you, that if we decide in another week, and I'm paraphrasing, or the week before school starts or the week after school starts, can we go to remote at that point? I don't see any reason why we can't. We're going to have a more difficult time going in the opposite direction, and that's why anybody who filled out the remote survey had to click the box that said, I attest that I understand that when I make this decision, my student has to be remote for the entire 10 weeks. Because we can't have a fluctuating population where people are going in and out. But we have a harder time here managing people coming in because we have to count 6 feet between every desk and those types of things. So students and parents, or if parents wanted to opt their students out for remote at a later date, certainly it'd be great to know now. If people have their mind made up, because that helps us do those sections and class lists and all that and try to keep them as even as possible and allow students to be spread out as much as possible. But if we got to the second week of school and somebody said, I want my child to be remote, the answer is going to be yes. The one question I would have is that we do have a certain supply of Chromebooks and iPads and those types of items that are going to be needed for remote learning. That would be the only barrier. If we didn't have one immediately available, I'd have to ask that question of you, and we'd have to get one to make available. But right now, there is a nationwide shortage of Intel chips, and actually AMD is starting to have some shortages as well. So we can't get new Chromebooks and we can't get new iPads, although we have ordered them and ordered some as far back as late April, early May. So we can do it, and yes, make that choice if you need to make that choice for the best interest of your child or children. Just need to be a little bit flexible on if you say, well, my kid's going remote tomorrow, where's their device? It might take us a little bit of time to work that out. I don't mean weeks, I mean days. And if you've got one at home and can say, yeah, I want to be remote, I've got a device at home that they can use, that can be almost instant, other than having to make sure the teacher knows to put them in that group and make sure they have the appropriate materials to do so from home.
Can children have a small bottle of hand sanitizer in their bags or pockets?
And repeating question about kids in classrooms. I know Karen answered that, but we measured out all the classrooms.
Yeah. So asking about students having hand sanitizer. So we need to be cognizant as a school district what kind of hand sanitizer they're using. And there has been recalls on some of the hand sanitizers. So that's what concerns me about students having them. Do I have an overall issue, or do we have an overall concern? Yes. We are going to have it available everywhere. So we'd like to have as few extra bottles of hand sanitizer rolling around. I do know that if you have a special education student who would be being bused to a different location, or even being bused here to our location, just letting somebody in the meeting, that we're not supposed to have hand sanitizer on buses because it is a combustible. We're also not allowed to have disinfectant on buses. So those types of things will disinfect the buses when they're empty, when they're in the lot. But I would ask that we use the hand sanitizer available here. If there's a specific reason why a child or young person can't tolerate what we have here, then certainly that would be something you should reach out to the school principals about, and we can make an individualized determination based on the student's needs there. The other was about classrooms and number of students in classrooms, maybe. Yeah, so the classrooms have been measured out. So 6 feet between, we have 6 feet between is the rule that we've been using. We did walk the entire school yesterday to see where we were, and they were still working on a few rooms, and we asked to have some desks removed. We were measuring out a few more spaces, some of our larger spaces to see. We've got a couple of groups in our upper elementary that are 25 to 28, I'll say, and those won't fit in our elementary classrooms as is. So we are using some larger rooms, some larger classrooms that are in different spots of the building. We are trying to keep them to the middle of the building. But we do have some classrooms that are over 1,000 square feet on the K Street side of the building, and as we head over towards the high school. So we're not squishing them in. They're going to have 6 feet no matter what the number is, but we're going to have to use a different space to do so. And right now, as we look at the folks who are going to virtual, we're making adjustments to class numbers, which is making it easier to fit certain groups into certain classrooms, but we're not forcing them to fit. That's just not what we're going to do. It doesn't make any sense to start out that way.
I'd like to know if they'll know who they're teaching.
Yep. So schools are required to have an isolation room that's supervised, that an adult staff member can see the students who are in the isolation room. So let's talk about arrival a little bit and dismissal, because that's a lot of questions, and frankly that's when all of our kids move at once normally, and that's concerning. So I'll start with arrival. And so we're going to ask that students don't arrive, 30 minutes before school starts. School starts at 8. We do have students that come a little bit earlier because they're going to get breakfast here. We don't want to be late for class, and they don't want to be late for class, and that's fantastic that they have that ethic. So we are going to be bringing students in. They are going to be temped when they come in using an infrared no-touch thermometer. We have purchased 5 of those in addition to the ones we had prior to the COVID outbreak. So they're here as well, and we're ready to go. So anybody who comes to school before 8 o'clock, looking to come in to have breakfast, or looking to come in because the weather may be foul, we're trying to start that entry at 7:45. Although we're gonna be a little flexible. We understand we need people to work with us. If we have students who don't want to come inside and they're just coming at 7:30 to stand on the sidewalk, we're going to have to manage that as well. But we are putting little dots out on the sidewalk 6 feet apart. So even our students who are coming early to stand on the sidewalk, we're going to have staff out there starting at 7:45 saying, hey, if you're out here, and you want to stand out here until school starts, that's okay. We'd like you to come closer to when school starts, but you have to stand on one of those dots so that we know that you're 6 feet apart. But as students are coming in, they'll be temped. We're also going to allow parents to self-screen before the children come each day. And we had a parent ask, could that be something that's done online? We do think it can be. We're also cognizant that we have parents that maybe don't have the best access to online, and some guardians who don't necessarily feel comfortable using a computer to do that. But it can be done through pretty easily and securely through a Google form, which is a small survey where you would go on each day and say, you put your child's name in, and then the first question would be, temperature is below 100 degrees, and you click yes. Because if you click no, if their temperature is above 100.0, they should not be coming here to school. And that's the number that New York State has given us, 100.0. So they would come to the front door, they would come in just into the foyer, they would be temped, or they would hand a slip that we're going to send home with parents who want them, where it says the same thing, temperature is below 100, and those four or 5 screening questions, and that will save a parent from having to do it online. It will also save them from having to wait to be temped, but we have the ability to tempt the kids. The infrared thermometers, those no-touch thermometers, take a temperature, in a very short period of time. There's also a concern that sometimes because students are coming in from outside and maybe they ran up the hill or maybe it was really cold, that you might get a temperature that's not accurate. So we are going to have to let them have a little bit of time to acclimate inside before the temperature happens. So we'll be slow moving coming in. So if parents have temped and health checked at home and either done it online or done it on that piece of paper, that will allow those students to move in. We are going to keep those pieces of paper and we are required to document how we're monitoring those temperatures, and we are required to spot check throughout the school day and throughout the school week to check on temperatures. So we would be doing that as well. And our staff will be following the same process. Our staff will have a way that they can, same way they'll have an online survey they can fill out. They'll provide information to the school so they can self-check before they come to school. And any staff who don't self-check before they come are going to be required to go through physical screening when they get here to school. So anyways, a student would come in the front door, they'd get temp checked or turn in their slip or say, my parent did it online, we can check that very quickly. And then they're allowed to go and get their breakfast. Breakfast is not going to be down in the cafeteria. They would get that on their way by the hallway that normally leads to the high school and then go into the gymnasium, and we'll have seating area set up in the gymnasium, socially distanced, where students can eat in there with garbage cans, obviously for the garbage. Once a student comes in the morning for breakfast, they're in because we've temped them. We've got their check on file. They're in the building. So in the past, we've had middle and high school students, less so elementary, who come in, have their breakfast, and want to go back outside. We're not going to be able to allow that this year. So again, I would encourage those students who usually do that to go back outside. They come a little bit later because we can't have students coming in and going out because we'd have to keep re-tapping them. And frankly, it's going to slow the whole process down for everybody. So a student would eat their breakfast at a seat in the gym. We'll also have spots, bleachers, socially distanced in the gymnasium for students to sit there. That's our normal protocol in the morning. Kids were always going to the gymnasium. They weren't necessarily taking their breakfast there, although some kids were taking their breakfast there. But we're taking the cafeteria out of the equation because our cafeteria socially distanced holds about 40 total. I think the real number is 38, but it's right around 40. And so that's just not conducive to getting everybody in and fed and back out, where our gymnasium can hold many more than that. So dismissal. So dismissal will look similar, but the students we're using the gymnasium for a lot because we can socially distance really well in there. Will look the same. We will still be letting parents enter the building through the same entrance. We are going to have dots on the ground going to the entrance, and then we'll have 6-foot markers inside the building. So the line's going to be a little bit longer for certain. But we are going to have parents coming in. They'll come to the desk. They'll give the child's name. The child will be called out of gymnasium. They'll go out the front door. We are going to have a group of school staff looking at a couple of the nuances of entry and exit of the building to see if maybe we should let a certain group of students, if it would make sense for them to exit out the back side of the building. If, say, they're walkers and we know they live down the hill, that might make the most sense. If they're walkers and we know that they head down the hill by the baseball field on K Street, might it make sense to let them out that door down there? So we are going to try to take some of the congestion out of the front because we don't want people on top of each other. We are going to be asking everybody, just like they do any place you go, whether it be Walmart or McDonald's, and you can see where I've been going, to be 6 feet apart. And it just takes a little bit longer. We have to be a little bit more cognizant of our surroundings, and we're going to be working with our children, our students here, to make sure they understand that we need them to help. And we're going to ask parents and guardians who are coming into the building to pick kids up to do the same. So I know these guys are typing through them.
So students are here. What does it look through? What does it look like? We've got the arrows and the staircases. Yep. And then also some questions about what does remote learning look like, and also what book bags cover you, so we go through the day. What the day look like.
Right. So yeah. So we're going to limit, so it's kind of what the question is, and it's paraphrased. What does the day look like? How do students move around inside the building? And I'm going to, and Mrs. Jones and Mr. Reddy and I all walked around and talked about this. So I'll start, and then maybe each one of them, then I'll mute me, and then they can talk. But we are trying to do one-way traffic in hallways. We do have signage that's going to be going up for one-way traffic. We do have one-way staircases. We are not going to have lockers or cubbies used. I know that got answered in the chat. Students' belongings are going to have to be with them at their desks. We're going to limit class changes by having staff members switch classrooms. We're going to have special teachers pushing in to classrooms to eliminate hallway traffic or reduce hallway traffic. So those are some of the things that we've talked about. Again, 6-foot markers especially like in the elementary hallways or in those long hallways, those 6-foot markers and reminders for young people. Those are some of the items. But if we'll start with
You'll take your side, then I'll take my side, or I can
What
go
do you
first.
want me to explain?
I can go through and like with the schedule, like on my side if you want. So,
give me just a second to.
you have to go first. My mic's not working.
Okay, what do you want me to explain? I was answering.
Just how kids are going to move around, how we're going to limit all movement.
Sure. Okay, so in the elementary building, we went and did a lot of measuring. The hallways are, in fact, more than 6 feet wide. So we can have students on one silver line on the floor going in one direction, like on the right-hand side, just as you drive a car on the right. And they can pass by another group of students that are going the opposite direction on the opposite side of the hallway, and they're still 6 feet apart. So it's going to be, one-way traffic on the right goes this way, and on the left goes the opposite way. We're going to have the stairway nearest my office is going to be the up stairway, and the stairway at the end of the hall nearest the baseball field is going to be the down stairway, except for in the case of a fire drill or something like that, and then they're all down stairways, of course. So there's going to be signs on the floor, on the walls. There's going to be marks showing children how far apart 6 feet is, and that'll be something that we have to teach them. This is the new normal for now until the COVID is over. This is what we have to do in school, and that'll be part of our teaching in the first several days of school.
Good working.
There we go. I should be good.
Is that good today?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Sam wants to add.
Do you want to come
Yeah,
over
yeah.
mine if your mic
I
is
should
working?
be good now. Connecting.
So Mr. Reddy's he's reconnecting,
Come over
and
here.
we'll let him.
There we go.
All right, so I should be good to go now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right, so very similar.
All right, so very similar.
The building in terms
On the other side of the building,
all movements look like, as well as the staircases.
hall movements look like, as well as the staircases.
The entrance.
We will be using the entrance by my office. That's the old high school entrance. It's been around for a while. By the front corner of the building. That will be an entrance for students in grades 6 through 12. We will also have a screening station there as well, where the students that were not pre-temped and pre-screened can do the screening at that point. As you enter that door right there, that staircase right there, right outside the office suite right there, that will be an up staircase. That staircase goes all the way to the 3rd floor. Just like we have in the elementary side of the building, on the other side as well, the hallways will be set up the same as traffic, stay to the right side. We will be putting 6-foot markers along the floor. There will be some very large markers, but kind of other smaller intermittent markers for what 6 feet spacing looks like. And again, just like the staircase next to my house will be the up staircase, the staircase at the end of that 3rd floor that I would say by Mrs. Lucas, kind of by the technology room there, that'll be the down staircase. And we are going to spend quite a bit of time with the students at the beginning of the school year going over what safe behaviors look like. Like we would typically do at the beginning of a school year, going through the syllabus of these are my expectations for the class, these are the expectations for school. We'll be doing the same thing. We will be doing our beginning of the year assembly for students. We'll be doing those remotely, well, through Google Meets. Rather than having all the students come to the auditorium, the students will be in their classrooms, and we'll do the same presentations and going through what safe behaviors look like in school, and really, again, tailoring that to the different age groups. For the classes as well, I believe Mr. Ward had already said, in some cases there are some cohort-based classes where instead of having the 7th graders go from the social studies room to the English room, if that's the same group of students going from room to room, we'll actually just have the teachers switch those rooms when possible. And I'll be fully upfront, that is not possible for every single class, given the schedules and staffing that we have for the school year. So there's also a question about what does remote learning look like for those students, and Mrs. Jones and I both said, the word out there right now, it's synchronous learning. And what that means is that if your child is home learning remotely, either full-time or for the 6 or 12 on the AB schedule, the days that they are home learning remotely, synchronous learning means that they are logged on for their classes, whenever those classes may be. The teachers will be set up with a webcam and a microphone. They'll be focused on the teacher for instruction, where the students at home can receive that instruction. There is the attendance expectation, and really I'm going to use the word expectation, and we're going to still uphold the same dress code and regulations. If your student is at home learning, the expectation is that your student is sitting up, the camera is turned on, they're dressed appropriately, and they are engaged in at least receiving the instruction part. As we go on into the year, there may even be some back and forth dialogue with those students. But certainly as we get things up and running, again, your student should be in a learning position. That's the word I want to keep using there, a learning position. Learning position is not laying in bed with their shirt off, lounged around. A learning position is sitting upright, focused and engaged in the class. Like I said, the halls, certainly we want to go over what safe behavior looks like from that perspective. Yeah, so certainly there was a question about what that Wednesday looks like. That Wednesday we have, I'm going to call it a flex day. There's certainly some flexibility with what that day looks like. We want to provide students with the supports needed, at the same time providing students with opportunities to continue engaging with their teachers on an ongoing basis. So I'll take a step back on that and let Mr. Ward go from there, and I'll check the chat box.
Yeah, so Sam and Karen, thanks. And exactly right, that the question around the Wednesday in the high school, we're calling it the C day. We're trying to balance, right? We're trying to balance so that the majority of our high school kids don't think that it is not a day off for the majority of our high school, while we're trying to provide extra supports for students who might need those supports. So that's going to evolve as we get things back up and running, and as we get access to our staff a little bit more consistently and working on what that's going to be. So we appreciate your patience on that. And I saw that the pre-K, and we'll have some more information about pre-K. We are asked to keep folks out of the building, and we'll have to get some more specific information about pre-K, because we're going to need to in the next couple of weeks for certain. Yeah, so BOCES has got some information on scheduling they provided to us. We haven't had a ton of time to take a look at that yet, but they're trying to do in-person as much as possible. They cannot do in-person every single day. The request that we have made at Fort Edward, and many school districts have, is that please make it, if possible, that all of our Fort Edward students attend their in-person BOCES CT programs on the same days. If they're going to do an A-B, please make it so that Fort Edward is all on A's or all on B's, or however that works. There's some other specialized programs, special education programs. BOCES is doing the same as Fort Edward is doing. We're trying to get to have those programs every single day right now. All the special education self-contained programs that we have here at Fort Edward will be in person every day for as long as allowed, and hopefully that's forever. And BOCES is trying to do the same exact thing. I want to circle back to something that I forgot to mention starting out. And I don't know if it came through the chat or not, because I can't watch that at the same time as trying to speak to the camera. But busing, I did have a parent who had reached out to me last week and said, well, I saw that in the plan it talks about busing, and and kids being separated and sanitizing the buses. I do want to just reiterate to folks that there is no busing for our pre-K through third grade students as there has been in the past. There is busing included in our plan because we are required by law, and we'll be providing transportation for students with disabilities and our homeless students, again, as required by law. And we will be providing transportation from the Fort Edward campus to CTE programs in as much as possible for those students. But there is no morning bus runs for regular education students. There is no afternoon bus runs for regular education students. But that is required to be in our plan because we do own buses, and we are going to have students on buses going to programs outside of the district, and some special education students or other students for specific legal reasons that we're required to bus them to this location as well. But for overall, for the majority, there is no transportation. And then I had some questions before about outside, and if it's already been answered in the chat, then I'm just looking to see. So people have asked, can there be instruction outdoors? And yes, there can be. We're not going to be erecting tents and things like that outside. There are several barriers that have been put in front of us to do things like that by the State of New York Office of Facilities Planning. Believe it or not, to erect a tent outdoors, you have to have architectural approval, and you have to have the State of New York Office of Facilities Management approval. And that's the same office that dictates what happens in school building projects. And they often see backlogs of 30, 40 weeks. I'm guessing if a school really wanted to put a tent up outside, they could probably get it through an architect and pay that fee and get it through the state, in a month's time. But right now, we're trying to be inside. But can teachers take a class of students outside for a lesson? Absolutely. And we had the conversation with the teachers, and we encourage that as long as they're very, very aware of the specific conditions that might exist with their students that they need to be aware of. And an easy example for me to use would be like, if you have a student with a bee allergy, you need to be very cognizant of that, obviously, all the time, but certainly when you go outside into a less controlled environment than we would have inside a normal classroom. So you may hear from your students, hey, we went outside today and we sat 6 feet apart on the grass and we learned about fractions. And I'm making up the example, but I know we have some teachers who are already running through this in their mind. How can we do something a little bit different for kids, and how can we get them someplace where we might be able to give them a break from that classroom space, because that's certainly going to be very, very important. And let's see, just looking at the questions, and Mr. Raddy and Mrs. Jones are typing away feverishly. Yeah, look at there. Are you guys pretty good with
So
what's in there?
they're good questions,
Yeah.
honestly. They
Yeah,
really
yeah.
are.
So we are looking. I just saw the last one that popped up from Carrie. I'll take that one live, and hopefully we're kind of caught up with all the rest. So yeah, we are looking at different spaces. Again, we have some classrooms that are. I'll use an easy example again. So our choral music room, where Mrs. Halloran used to be, is in that front part of the building, just a couple rooms down from the nurse's office. If you guys know your way around the building, I know almost all of you do. And that's going to be right now is scheduled to be 5th grade, and that's because that room is over 1,000 square feet. And the 5th grade is one of the grade levels that only has one section this year. If that section happens to grow, if we have some enrollments, or if we have some folks who said that they were going to be remote, who decide they want to be in person after the 10 weeks, and we're still in the social distancing mode, which frankly, folks, I really think we're probably going to be in this mode for a while. And I'm hoping that things continue to improve in New York State, or at least stay level in New York State. But if we were to have a group that got bigger, we'd have to look for another space. And even with the spaces that we have, there's a lot of rules about repurposing different areas and what you have to do. And again, it requires some architectural feedback, and it requires some state education feedback. But we obviously would follow the appropriate channels to do that if necessary. Or if, let's say, fifth grade got larger than we could handle all at once, we'd have to take a look at fifth grade and say, well, at this point, we're going to have to go every other day with fifth grade and make them do a schedule more like what the 6 through 12 is doing. And that could be for any grade level, because our staff is limited. There's just no ability for me to add any staff with the budget that we have. And obviously our building is limited, but we've got some creative ideas. The teachers came up with some more creative ideas today, and we'll be talking about those. But right now we feel confident that we can get pre-K through 3, and then 4 and 5 are a little large right now, but right now we're able to get them all in every day. Those are 2 of the grade levels that we have collectively here at school. The biggest concern about possibly looking at having to do something every other day, or to find a larger space to spread them out in. Right. Yeah. So picking up students, and so I didn't talk about. I talked about getting kids in. I didn't finish the conversation about dismissal. So dismissal is going to look the same. I had mentioned that, but right now we're not staggering times. We're going to stagger exits, and we also stagger the time of our dismissal by a few minutes. Like the students who need to be picked up are in the gym. The students who are walkers get released from the classroom at a later time. And I don't mean a half hour later, I mean a few minutes later. That way we can control the traffic and get the kids where they need to be. Had a question from a parent previously asking, I've got a third grader, and I know the rule has always been that a third grader is not allowed to leave the building unless there's an adult here. But I feel strongly that my third grader can make the 1 block trip to home, and I'd like that to be what happens. We haven't made a final determination on that. I think that would probably be a case by case thing we'd have to talk about. No, it's not in place yet, Gary. Sorry, I'll let you guys do that because you're faster. I guess I wanted to ask the people that are on tonight. We got a lot of parents on tonight. Do parents want to be able to do that online? And if just a few people can, if you think that's a good idea, if you can just say yes, then, and if there's enough to say yes, then that makes sense. If people are really not wanting to do that, all right, so that'll help. If you guys don't mind, just all of you, just that gives us some feedback on that. I appreciate that. So the dismissal, to get back to that, we don't have a lot of capacity to hold on to students beyond that 2:35 or the normal dismissal time. In the past, what would happen if a parent wasn't able to be here? The students would be brought out and they would sit with Toby in the front office, or they would sit just out the front office there. As many of you know, that's one of the positions that was reduced in our budget. And she retired, so good for her. I do have her signed on for the first couple of weeks of school, because we all know it's going to be a very challenging first couple of weeks of school. But unfortunately, I don't have the budget to make it so that can be something we have all year long. So we're going to be asking folks to be here on time, and we'll figure out a way to keep kids safe if parents are running late or if a caregiver is running late. We always will. We're not going to say, at 3 o'clock, we're going to put them out the door. We're going to keep them safe. But I don't have a large room to keep people for a long period of time. There is a group that Mrs. Jones has been working with who is looking to provide after-school childcare here at our building, and we are going to let them proceed with that as long as they follow all the rules they're supposed to follow and all the rules that we're supposed to follow. And they are. Can you talk to that just a little bit? Are you able? Yep. You know more about it, but they did.
That, sure.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so yes, I was just typing a response to KT about the aftercare program. As some of you know, I've been working on this for a long time, and I was trying to get the YMCA to do an after-school daycare program, and that fell through. And so I've gone with another company called Healthy Kids, and we had this almost in place. They had come to school to measure the rooms and all of that right before COVID happened. And then COVID happened, right? So everything kind of came to an abrupt halt. But they did come over this summer. And they are convinced that they can still provide this program with all of the proper social distancing, hand sanitizing, wearing masks, and all of that. This is a company outside of the Fort Edward School. They're just using our facility for this after-school program. They can watch children until, I believe it's 6 p.m. at night. It'll be mostly in the school cafeteria. The children are allowed to go outside and play on nice days. They can use the small gym or the art room as well. It's an additional cost, which I think it's $200 per month for this after-school care from 2:30 to 6 o'clock. I think they do accept the assistance from the county if you're eligible for that childcare assistance. And I'm going to give them a call and see if they're prepared to start in September. I know they were filing all of the necessary paperwork with New York State. And as I'm sure you know, this can be a lengthy process. So I will check in with them tomorrow and see if they're ready to start in September or not, because it is hard for parents to get there to pick up little kids. Believe me, I understand. I have 3 little ones myself, so I'll follow up on that.
Yep. So I see the question. So that they have to carry. They're required to carry their own insurance on that. But certainly we have umbrella insurance here too. But they're a not-for-profit and there's no cost at this point. So we'll work out that. I see the question about that too. We'll work that out and see if we can make it happen for folks if people have a need that goes later than that. But we don't have the final answers as you can hear, but it's something that Mrs. Jones has been working on for a long time. I know that they did reach out by telephone to me in the last week just to see if there was a possibility of still moving forward. So we will work through that. Yeah. So free. We are still a CEP school. I'm going to grab the free lunch one. We still are free for all, free breakfast and free lunch for all students here. We have the community eligibility through the state of New York. So the only meals that people pay for here would be if people are eating a second meal, or if they want an extra drink, or if they buy an ice cream, or some of those extra things. It's also worth saying that our cafeteria is changing a little bit with management, where the Capital Region BOCES will actually be managing it. You may have heard of a company called Aramark. They have managed it for the last 4 or 5 years. So they'll be taking over. And they've been in and talking with, they met with Sam this morning, and they've talked with me several times, and we're looking for an upgrade to the meals that our kids are receiving. Is really one of the reasons. And we're also looking to be as cost efficient as possible. And when we use the BOCES to do it as opposed to a private company like Aramark, then it generates aid back for the school as well.
Did you see Maggie's question about the My School Bucks?
That's a great question about the My School Bucks, and that makes me very much wonder, because I have money on my My School Bucks account, Maggie. So I'll find out. I don't know the answer. I want to say it's going to be a yes, because those accounts live within our student management system for school lunches called NutriKids. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be a yes, but I got to find out for certain. So custodial staff will be cleaning this. Yeah, so you answered already. You got it. Okay. Yep. Some parts. That was that.
Same thing. Some parts daily, some parts each use, some parts 3 or 4.
Yeah. So there's a schedule that we had to develop for cleaning of different areas, and I think the question is there how many custodians work in each wing. So, and not to be technical, but so technically our people are called cleaners or building maintenance workers. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 full-time cleaners, 1 full-time building maintenance worker for the whole building. And we have 1 part-time cleaner that we use on an as-needed basis. So that's what we have to do the whole building. That being said, we do have individuals who are assigned, for example, excuse me, the 3rd floor of the high school and 2nd floor of the high school is assigned to a specific individual. And on nights when he's not here because he's ill or something like that, we reassign or we use that part-time person for more than normal hours to make up that cleaning. We also have a list of substitutes. We had a large list of substitutes that we were using back before the school closing due to the pandemic. So we have people who can fill in if those workers choose to come back on our substitute list. So we're working on our substitute list for cleaners right now to get that back up to snuff. I think if so, I see, Shannon, I see. What if teachers take kids outside or use the gym for recess? I don't. That would be acceptable. What's the? Are you asking if teachers can do so, or are
She
you?
wants to know, can they stay 12 feet apart?
Yeah. That would be what we'd be asking. That's what we'd be asking for. Yeah, for students to be, if they're outside and they're moving fast and breathing fast, they're supposed to be 12 feet apart. Absolutely. But we do want kids to be able to get a chance to go out and move. And that's going to be difficult for young people who probably haven't seen all of their friends in a long time, or young people who are seeing their friends a lot in an area or a place where they're not being asked to stay 12 feet apart. So it's going to take some education. And there was some questions that have come across my desk about what if playgrounds open during the day. I'm just going to grab that one there for school use only. Right now, the grounds and the playground are still closed to outside use because we don't have an outside cleaning routine until school comes back in session, or disinfecting and cleaning routine. So we do want kids to go out and be able to move around some, but we're going to have to educate them on why it's 12 feet and why is that different. And it's the same thing for our choral and our band classes. We're putting them, we're going to be holding that in an auditorium, and it seems very interesting to go through the auditorium and say, how many kids can we get in here, and to say, well, we think we can get 25 in the auditorium safely, when our auditorium normally sits 400.
What about masks in classrooms, face shields, and what about
Yep. Yeah. So the state guidance for a person who doesn't have a medical condition that says they can't is that if you wear a face shield, you must still wear a mask in a school. And that's not what you're seeing at your grocery stores. That's not what you're seeing at your churches. That's not what you're seeing. But the standard for schools is a face shield does not replace a mask. A person, whether it be a student or a staff member, can wear a face shield, but they must also wear a mask. And I think I saw one about how often. So I didn't see it exactly, but the playground is on our cleaning and disinfection schedule as well. So that will be happening.
Yeah, band.
Yeah. So right now, band will be occurring. We only have one music teacher. Yeah, I see that. I'm going to hit yours, Gwen, right now. In our plan, if students are seated and the teacher is seated in the room, the masks can be off. As soon as anytime anybody's moving, the mask should be on, and the same thing in the common areas. And then remind me what I was just talking about. So band, with only one music teacher, I can tell you that our band and chorus classes are going to look different. So students in grades 6 through 12 may very well be mixed in band class, may very well be mixed in chorus class. But we are going to have them. We are going to have them separate out as of yesterday. Do you want to? Can you speak to the conversation, or is it too premature to speak to that about the band? I know you spoke with Mr. Koft. I'll mute mine.
So yeah, I had a pretty long conversation with Mr. Kopp yesterday afternoon. Obviously, Mr. Kopp, as well as everyone here, wants to continue providing the best arts opportunities possible. We are going to be going forward with a 6 through 12 band, as well as a 6 through 12 chorus. Mr. Kopp will also be doing responsible for the elementary music as well. So that definitely creates some scheduling challenges in terms of getting lessons and scheduling lessons. But again, Mr. Kopp is, per my conversation yesterday, is fully committed to continuing to provide music instruction and keep these students going forward with music and band. So That's from a scheduling. So I'm going to look at it from a 6 through 12 perspective. It gets a little bit interesting from a schedule from scheduling. For students in band in 6 through 12 with the AB schedule, they would have one day a week would be band rehearsal. And then for students in chorus, they would also have one day a week would be chorus rehearsal, because that's an alternating, kind of day 1, 3, 5 or 2, 4, 6. And that usually alternates with a gym class, or usually alternates with band and chorus, or usually alternates with another AIS or support class. So again, yes, to the question there, band is still happening. He is going to build in lessons as much as he possibly can with the schedule and the schedule restrictions that he has, while still trying not to take away from the instructional opportunities that the students would have with their teachers. So again, the rehearsal component would be once per week for band and once per week for chorus. That was another one of those things that came up as a possible Wednesday flex option. That has not been decided yet. So, but again, there's still a lot up in the air of what that looks like. But yes, so that answer some of the questions there.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just looking to see what else is popping up here.
Can they clean, can they
Sorry, my mic was off. So I don't know if the fogger can be used outdoors, if it's effective that way, but I do know that we do have a disinfectant and a spray bottle was what we were planning to use, but that was before we got the foggers. So I need to ask about the routine and the method, and to see if a fogger can be used out there. I just don't want to use a fogger in an outdoor space if it's not effective, obviously. And school asking about so Mrs. Jones has got that in there. So there's a board meeting Monday night, more likely than not, and the board knows. I had mentioned to them about a week or two ago that I may be coming to them at the board meeting and saying, listen, we're going to need a couple of days with our staff rather than just one to try to make this all happen for our kids. So the parents that are on here tonight, there's a great possibility that we'll have at least 2 superintendent's conferences as opposed to the one scheduled. There's a slight chance we might have 3, but I'm going to say there's a good chance we'll have 2. And so our start date would be pushed by 1 day. It just, we need to get this right. And I don't want to have it not be right over the sake of 1 day when we're bringing, probably 75 employees back. And they're paying attention to what's going on now. But until you get in here and you look around and you say, hey, what about this? Because there's going to be a teaching assistant or a cafeteria worker or a teacher or a bus driver who's going to say, hey, what about this? And we're going to have thought about it differently, or maybe one of those small things like, hey, there should be a sign over here that says this, and it might be the best idea in the world that we just missed. Yeah, and we're looking at that schedule. I don't know if we would be off, Jessica, all 4 days in the beginning. So we're gonna we'll know Monday about the initial delay, and then if we have to do more than that, I would say you would know by, I have to look at the calendar, not next week, but the week after, which I know doesn't give you a lot of time, but we're working through this as quickly as we can. So virtual learners, I saw that one pop up. Alexi and Jen, and so our Fort Edward IT folks have sent me a proposal on how to get hardware out to people. We haven't had a conversation with our teaching staff yet about how to get the learning materials, if there's paper learning materials or books, out to people. But I would see it being probably as a pickup as well, and a pickup drop off like we did before. And we're going to have to be flexible in the first couple of days of school to get it all working, both from our parents not being able to get here at the exact time that we're trying to give stuff out, and teachers understanding that a kid might not have their book yet, all those kinds of things to make it happen. But we're hoping to make it as smooth as possible. If we get it all figured out and we can hand stuff out the Thursday before Labor Day or the second half of that conference day, then we'll try to do it that way. Oh, Jen's on here, so good thing I wasn't talking bad about you, Jen. Did I get it right, Jen? Yeah, I thought so. There's a lot of
Yes,
work to try to make this good for kids.
you did, Dan, and we have 4 MiFis. We have 4 or 5 MiFis for those who do not have Wi-Fi.
Sorry, Jen. I had my speakers turned off to take the feedback down, so I did not hear you.
We do, that sounds right, and we do have 4 or 5 MiFis to those who don't have Wi-Fi. So let Mr. Ratty or Mrs. Jones know, hey, if you need those MiFis, and we're ready to roll on those.
Right, and that's a great point, Jen. So when we did our survey of people last year, do you have Wi-Fi at home? Do you have consistent Wi-Fi at home? You know, the majority of people said yes. We had some people who said no, so we went out and got the MiFis. What I would ask, and what we're asking, is that if you really, really need it, we're really, really going to give it to you. But we're asking not to take it just so that you have one, because one might be available, because our numbers are limited and they're hard to get. They're difficult to get, so we want to make sure they're in the right. But we have them on hand. We're ready to rock with this for certain. And ours are through. I think we have a few through Verizon and maybe one through T-Mobile or something, or maybe all. Yeah, so we've got a few from one. You got it. Yeah, so they work well in Fort Edward. They really do. They don't work well in Whitehall, I guarantee you that, or in the mountains. But in Fort Edward, we do pretty well. But if you hear people saying, I have no internet at home, I'm so frustrated, please have them reach out to Karen or Sam or me, and we'll get them hooked up with Jen or Alexi or somebody else in the tech office. And our tech people were fantastic in the closing too. If a parent had a problem, Jen would say, hey, tell them to call me. And they would call her, or they would email her direct, and they would meet or get on the phone and figure it out. And that's how we plan to proceed. Not that Jen can work on your home computer or your printer in your house, but we're working on whatever kids need to make it happen. Other stuff coming through here.
I think we're okay,
If you
Dan.
have specific questions, they can reach out to
Our
us.
little system here is working well.
Yeah.
We can go to chat and-
Yeah, so we're slowing down on the questions. What we were just kind of saying together here is, if you have a specific, that's a good one, Brooke. We want to answer that. If you have a specific question that deals with your child due to a special need or concern, if you could reach out to Karen or Sam through email, that would be preferable. That way we're not talking about a specific individual on the chat. That just isn't what we're supposed to do. But how does a student get extra help? And that's, yeah, so do you want to talk? So the elementary kids are going to be here every day. So we're hoping that the teachers will be able to work that in. And we do have our AIS providers still here and still working with students, socially distanced. So they're in larger rooms than they used to be, socially distanced. And then I'll let Sam talk about what our vision is for the high school for that to work.
Certainly. All right, so really that's really what we're looking at for Wednesday, is that C day or that flex day, is to provide students the opportunity for additional time to work with their teachers and engagement, to work on specific skills or whatever it might be, or even if a student is struggling in a class, time to coordinate with that teacher during that C or that flex day. Again, I could provide some examples, but it really kind of depends as we get into the year what it looks like. I really don't want to put a black and white, this is what that C day looks like. I think it's going to change as the year goes on. We were even talking about maybe alternating weeks, where you have, the kids come in one, this one group comes in 1 week, the other group comes in the next week. We are going to use that time to provide students the supports needed and the opportunities to be successful at whatever that class might be or whatever that challenge might be. Certainly our goal in doing all this is to continue providing students the opportunity to be successful, providing students the opportunity to make progress and learn. So again, there is time there to do that. And again, the days that the students are here in person for the student, obviously, so remotely, that's going to be, we'll have to find the time to schedule that that engage. But the days that the students are here in person, they're still going to, there's still study halls that are built in. There are still those AIS support periods built in. We're not taking those away. those student support services have always been there and always will be there. That's a big part of the schedule that we're looking at. So the same way that a student would get support if they were here in person, it'll still be there. Obviously, it'll be on a rotating basis, but there'd be those 2 to 3 days a week where they'd have that opportunity. Does that kind of answer the question that you had there?
I'm gonna pop back in. Thanks, Sam. So, let's see, Jessica asked about the plan being approved by the state and Department of Health. So both submitted, I received affirmations from both, and the way that they work that is when you submitted your plan, the affirmation that you received back said, proceed as if your plan has been approved as is. And I'm paraphrasing now, and they'll be in touch if there's something that they see about it. But we haven't received no contact from anyone since the 31st, other than to say that it's been approved. So that's where we are on that. And extra help. Let's see. Tanya had something, but yeah. So teachers, yeah, and I think Sam might have addressed it. Teachers should be available on that flex day. So something that's a little bit different. Obviously our staff are going to be here every day, and I know before staff were trying to overcome some bandwidth issues in their own homes because everybody was, we were kind of locked out. That's what was happening. Other than me and Mrs. Jones and Mr. Ratty and a few essential staff, everybody was locked out almost instantly. And I'll say what I've said to the staff. And you guys haven't heard this from me, or maybe you have. And one of the times I was on, we're going through a lot here, and it's painful, and it's been detrimental to the education of the children of Fort Edward and of the whole state and of the whole country, I'm sure, but certainly of Fort Edward. But if what we're doing makes it so that one person doesn't get infected, or one person doesn't have a serious health consideration, or God forbid something worse happen, then it's all going to be worth it. And that's just what we're trying to do here. That being said, we're going to have to adjust as we move along, like I said in the beginning, and there may be something that we've missed. We've got a solid plan. We're working out the details. We're trying to get some feedback from you folks. Got some feedback from our staff a little bit earlier today, and we'll continue to do so. But we won't be without some sort of misstep somewhere in this, and we're just trying to make sure that we do everything we can to make any misstep as small as possible. And I would say anybody who tells you they have everything figured out about kids returning to school would probably be telling you something that's false. But we're really trying to make it as best as we can. Let's see, do we have others? So we're approaching like hour and 20 minutes. Not that we're too concerned about it. So we will be providing more information. There was something that I want. Supply lists. Now that did that come up already and you took care of it? Okay, great. So all right, you guys are all over it. So I'm hoping that the way of us doing this, so the three of us were in the same room, worked for you. I think it worked for us to try to keep up with everybody rather than get to the end and have 200 questions to answer. So if you had something that we didn't get to, we didn't do that on purpose. And again, we'll be on those other dates, and I don't have them memorized.
The 18th.
But
At noon and 4:30, or is it 12?
yeah, no, so you're right. Yeah, so Tuesday, August 18th at noon, and Tuesday, August 18th at 4:30. We'll be on. Right now, we'd be doing basically the same thing with the same information. Certainly, if information changes, that could change some of the answers we gave today. But if something big changes, we're gonna push something out to you folks so that you have it. We're not gonna make you dig for something that's a big change. You just got to just be patient and know that we'll get it out as quickly as we can. Sometimes in our communities, things move quickly, and they move quicker than we can get them out officially. Let me say it that way. But we want to get the right stuff out to everybody as quickly as we can. Going from there. So thanks everybody. We'll be out again those 2 nights, and I want to thank Karen and Sam for typing away. They're much faster on the keyboard than I am, And I do apologize for my technical difficulties at the beginning of this. It's incredible how that happens when we were just on 2 hours ago and everything worked perfectly. So I understand how remote learning can be challenging for students and parents and teachers, because it's challenging for me at times. All right, have a great night, everybody. Thanks for being here. And this recording will be up. It takes a little bit of time for it to process through Google. I would guess by tomorrow afternoon. If not, over the weekend, probably I can get it up there with the help of Ryan Herman. And again, I'll thank him every time I'm on here doing one of these things, because he helps me immensely in keeping up with the social media and the web posts. All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks, everybody.